This is in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and it's most well known for making these 155mm artillery shells, the most important weapon in the world's arsenals. And the numbers don't lie. 80% of the casualties of war in Ukraine on both sides have come by way of artillery shells like these. That means global demands are surging, and while this plant is pretty efficient, it's still not making them fast enough. The one thing that makes this plant so significant is that it's one of the few places in the entire US where these shells can be manufactured. The site started as a train repair shop, but converted to making artillery shells to fulfill demand in the Korean War, and it's been that way ever since. Today, about 300 people are employed over a site that spans 15.3 acres, and they're working around the clock to produce the shells that both Ukraine and our own country's army badly needs. Their hard work, fortunately, seems to be paying off. Before the war, the Scranton plant produced 11,040 shells per month, and producing them is anything but easy. The process starts with these. They're 2,000-pound steel rods, and they're 20 feet long. The rods get taken to the forge shop where these robotic saws slice them into foot-long billets. Then they're inspected. If cleared, they'll get the thrill of experiencing extreme heat. These shells are in the process of being born in fire, literally. The billets are fed into a huge furnace that heats them to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, where they will stay for an hour. When their long, fiery bath is finally over, they'll emerge as red-hot coals that come to a stop in a room where they can be safely touched by robotic arms. They're about to change shape dramatically, and the transformation will come in only 90 seconds. The metal arms take the glowing billets to 3 separate stations, where they're pierced, stretched, and pressed into a length of 3 feet in a cylindrical shape. The still red-hot shells in the making now get to take a ride on what the workers call the subway. A metal claw like this will carry them one by one to a large, dark, and empty room. They're inspected again there, though workers have to make sure not to touch them. If they do, their hands will literally fall off. But workers can still see if their shape and consistency are up to par. If they are, they'll cool over a 4-hour period and wait to look more presentable. They're about to have a shave. Now they're about to get hot again. In a process called nosing, the tip of each shell is heated to 1,500 degrees and placed in a press to be shaped. These machines will shave 30 pounds of excess metal from the billets until they come out looking like polished shells. The machines shave them down to tolerance demands of only thousandths of an inch. Once the nose looks like a nose, 40 of the emerging shells are packed into trays and cooked in this oven. It's a much longer heat bath this time. They'll stay there for 4 hours. This heat bath is important because it will make the steel shatter into small fragments when the shell explodes. That is important for its lethality on the battlefield. The hot shells are then placed onto the finish line. Once they're cool, again, this lathe cuts threads into the shell's open nose for the fuses. This will only be installed at the last minute by soldiers on the front line getting ready to fire the finished product. But there's still a long way to go before then, though. The next station installs rotating bands made of copper to the bases of the emerging shells. But this process isn't entirely automated. These workers cut grooves into them. The finished product will engage with these twists. That's the rifling inside the barrel of the howitzer the shells will be fired from. The barrel's rifling imparts an aerodynamic spin to the projectiles, giving them more range and accuracy. An automated process will then apply a protective cover to the almost finished shell, and zinc phosphate will be applied as a coating to prevent corrosion. Finally, these machines will spray them with their distinctive olive green paint. They'll get another heat treatment, though this time only to a modest 225 degrees Fahrenheit to dry the paint faster. After one last inspection, the cooled shells are packed and sent to the Iowa Army ammunition plant, where they'll be filled with molten explosives and packaged for delivery, either to Ukraine or to America's own arsenal. Since the war, the production at this plant has increased over threefold to 36,000 per month by August of 2024, but that still may not be enough. The Scranton plant may have a routine production process, but this structure and even some of the machines are surprisingly over 80 years old. That's why the plant is undergoing a $400 million modernization program. The program includes a new production line with cutting-edge new machines that will do the job of 3 of the existing machines. There are 20 projects in total, and the modernization program is about halfway done as of now. The U.S. military hopes that the more efficient plant will be able to produce far more than the current 36,000, and that increase will be needed. People thought that Ukraine would fall in a few days thanks to Russia's overwhelming superiority. But Russia was never really a combined arms fighting force the way the U.S. military is. It is, above all, an artillery army. To this day, it has the world's largest artillery force by far, ranking first in the world in self-propelled, towed, and rocket artillery. Fortunately for Ukraine, Russia wasn't using these assets all that well either. At their peak in the summer of 2022, the Russians were firing up to 60,000 shells per day. But this fire wasn't always accurate and was basically a spray and pray approach. The problem is that Ukraine is still significantly outgunned, to the tune of firing only 5,000 to 6,000 shells of their own per day, according to the U.S. State Department. Ukraine needed help. The United States and its allies had to supply Ukraine with more shells or it would be pounded into defeat. But unfortunately, the U.S. supply is being pulled in many directions. The post-Cold War peace dividend is at an end. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China's increasing threats to its neighbors, North Korea's nuclear program, and Iran's activities in the Middle East are proof of that. More artillery shells will be needed to counter these threats. The problem is that even with the increased production, they're not being sent off the line quickly enough. The fantastic expenditures of ammunition in Ukraine are proof of that. The United States has turned to South Korea to make up for some of the shortcomings. Unlike many other countries, South Korea never got to fully experience the peace dividend due to the constant threat of North Korea, so it has a lot of military surplus on hand. In March of 2023, Seoul agreed to lend the United States 500,000 shells. But America's needs go beyond just finished shells. The United States has a TNT shortage too, so it sourced the explosives from Japan to use in artillery shells. The U.S. military hopes to get past these stopgaps and domestically produce 100,000 shells per month by the summer of this year. But that might still not be enough to supply Ukraine's needs, let alone America's own demands. That's why the U.S. and Ukraine have taken some desperate measures, including turning to a weapon that most countries ban. In July 2023, Washington and Kiev made a controversial agreement. America would supply Ukraine with cluster bombs, like the Dual-Purpose Improved Conventional Munition, or DPICM. It is an artillery round that splits into smaller bomblets and impacts a wider area. The United States has hundreds of thousands of these left over from the Cold War, but they're controversial. Many of the bomblets fail to detonate on impact, which means there's a lot of them lying around that become like landmines that injure civilians long after the fighting stops. That's why 111 countries are party to the Convention on Cluster Munitions, an international treaty which prohibits their use. The United States and Ukraine aren't among them, though. Neither is Russia, for that matter, and it used cluster bombs in civilian areas long before Washington and Kiev's agreement. The cluster bombs have proven effective, but America calls it only a temporary solution. The United States once intended to supply more high-explosive shells instead. Once. It might not be that way for long. The United States supplied Ukraine with over 3 million 155mm shells by March of 2025. But there was always a heated debate about this, with China potentially threatening an invasion of Taiwan as early as 2027. Some people wondered whether it was such a smart idea to send so many vital shells to a less relevant theater. The Indo-Pacific, not Europe, is the cockpit of the global economy and Washington's highest priority. Start here. Look at Taiwan on a map. Notice that it sits at the center of a string of islands stretching from Japan to Indonesia. That's the first island chain, and it's the first line of defense against global Chinese military expansion. Taiwan is also at the center of the vital semiconductor industry, and if that chip supply gets cut off, say goodbye to your new phones, computers, and even cars or household appliances for a long time. Many national security experts in Washington, like this man, the incoming Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Elbridge Colby, believes that it is impossible to maintain deterrence against China with so many vital weapons like the 155mm shells going to Ukraine. The sacrifice must be made, they say, and the choice is clear. Taiwan is vital. Ukraine isn't. For its part, the U.S. Army says it will be able to make enough shells to both aid Ukraine and deter China. The question for Ukraine is whether that will come too late. Bye for now.